Hi, I'm Christian Triola, author of The Missing Method for Guitar Books. And in this fingerpicking lesson, we're going to take a look at the song you just heard, We Are Going to Be Friends by the White Stripes. The album that it's off of is called White Blood Cell and came out in 2001. And of course, this song as a single came out the next year in the fall of 2002 and became a huge hit. So what I'm going to do in this video is break down each section of the song so that you can learn how to play each one. So we have an intro, which we'll take a look at in a minute. We have verse 1, which includes the chorus, verse 2, which also includes the chorus, 3 and 4. Then we have a bridge, which is a little bit different from the rest of it. And then finally, the final verse, which includes the final chord. Now, each verse is about the same, but with a few little variations here and there to keep it more interesting. But the chords themselves, there's only 5 of them in the whole song. 4 of them are repeated time and time again, with one of the chords only showing up in the bridge. So let's first go over the chords and then we'll look at the introduction. So our first chord is G. Now normally you would want to play a G chord with your third finger on the first string, etc. Hopefully you've played a G chord before if you're watching this video. If not, you can always kind of look that up. But in this song, at the beginning, especially the intro and the first couple verses, you only need your third finger on the last string, 3rd fret. The rest of it you don't really use. You don't need that. Next, we have C. And again, you can use that without the middle finger down if you want, because you don't use that string. Now I tend to keep that finger down just so I can grab the C chord quickly and not have to overthink it. Next on the list, of course, is D major. And then finally, we have C add 9. Now in this case, we're just putting our third finger on the note D, 2nd string, 3rd fret, index finger on the 4th string, 2nd fret, and then the middle finger on the 3rd fret of the 5th string. And that gives us the C add 9 chord. All right, so let's get to the introduction. The introduction is 2 measures long and it's only the G chord. And when you listen to the recording, you can clearly hear what the guitar is doing here. So there's nothing ambiguous. You put your third finger on the note G. Then with your other hand, use your thumb on the 6th string, followed by the index finger on the 3rd. So throughout the whole song, whenever you play a bass note, use your thumb. Whenever you play the 3rd string, use your index finger. Whenever you play the 2nd string, use your middle finger. And that goes through the entire song. So on the intro, we have G, thumb, index again, thumb, middle, thumb, index. Then we go into measure 2, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index. All together, here's the intro. And then we can go on to verse 1. So let's do that. Okay, so here's verse 1. We start off very similarly to the intro. We have that G chord down again. But this time, in the other hand, instead of thumb index first, we're going to switch that up and do thumb middle first. So we have thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index. And then finally we change to a C chord where we have thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle. Then we switch back to a G chord. Which is again that thumb, index, thumb, middle throughout that measure. Next up, we finally change to the D chord. So now our thumb is going to play the 4th string open. Then we go to the 1st string with the middle finger. Thumb again on the 4th string. And then we go to the 2nd string with the index finger. And that's the only stuff you play on D major in that section. In fact, throughout the whole song. Then you immediately go to the C add 9, thumb on the 5th string, middle finger on the 2nd string, and then you do that again. So the C add 9 is simply 5th string, 2nd string, 5th string, 2nd string. So technically you don't need that index finger down, but again, I like to do it just to keep things simple. Okay, so that whole measure together, starting with the D. And then we can move on. G is next. Here we have thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle again. And those are some of the variations that I was talking about. Every once in a while, he'll play the same thing again or just change it up a little bit. In that case, it's thumb, middle twice in a row. The last part of the first verse, we go back to that D chord and we play it exactly like we did just a moment ago. Thumb, middle, thumb, index, switch to the C add 9. And what I find myself doing sometimes on that C add 9 is I play with the thumb, index on the second string, which kind of breaks the rules a little bit, and then thumb on the 5th string followed by the middle on the 2nd string. That way I'm kind of keeping my fingers moving so I'm not just doing the same things over and over again. Okay, and then finally we land on a G chord for the last 2 measures of verse 1. So it sounds like this: thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle. And that takes care of verse 1. Now let's move on to verse 2. Now with verse 2, I'm not going to take quite as much time on because a lot of it is the same. So I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. The chord progression is exactly the same. 2 measures of G, 1 of C, 1 of G again, 1 measure that has D followed by C add 9, back to G, back to D and C add 9, ending on G. So all the verses are going to follow that format. So with verse 2, we have thumb and then index right after. Thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle. Change to C, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, and then at the very end we take off the first finger and play the 2nd string open with the middle finger. So that C measure again. Then we transition over to a G. Thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, middle. Now the next measure is exactly like it is in verse 1. D chord, thumb, middle, thumb, index, C add 9, back to G. And that was thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, middle. Then we go back to D again, same thing exactly again. Then back to the G. Thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, and it does it again for another full measure. And that takes care of verse 2. So I'm going to play through that whole thing slowly just so you can kind of follow along. All right, that takes care of verse number 2, so let's move on to verse 3. Now, verse 3 again, very similar, so I'm going to again try to get through it quickly here. Again, we start with the G, we do the thumb, index several times in a row, thumb, index, thumb, middle, and then it alternates in the 2nd measure. So the 2nd measure of verse 3 is a little bit different. So thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, then thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle again. Then when we change to C, it's a little bit different as well. Thumb, middle, thumb, middle, thumb, middle, thumb. Take off that first finger, middle on the 2nd string again. So to get all together on C. Back to G, and we're going to do the same thing, thumb and middle throughout that whole measure. Then the D to C add 9 is the same as before. But this time when we go to the G, which I already started there a second ago, it's just thumb, second string with either the index or the middle finger. It's thumb, second string the whole way through. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Switch to the D, same as before. C add 9, G. Thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle. And now at the end of verse 3, we have a change. We now put our third finger on the note D, which is the second string, third fret. We play thumb on last string, third fret, D on the second string. And this gives it a little bit of variety. It's still a G chord, it's still part of that chord, but we're just adding that extra note in there. So last measure of verse 3, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, middle. And that's everything for verse 3. So I'm going to go ahead and play through that all together. And that's verse 3. Let's move on to the next one. All right, verse 4 is next. In verse 4, things change a little bit. We go from the G, but this time we get that third fret on the second string. So we have thumb, index, thumb, middle on the second string, thumb, middle, thumb, index. So your finger picking hand's doing the same thing over and over again. Next measure, same. Change to C, we're going to go back and forth between the fifth and second strings. Release on the last one, back to the G. And that was thumb, middle, thumb, index, followed by 2 thumb middles. The D and C are the same. Back to G. Now this time when it goes back to G, the first one is thumb, open middle, followed by thumb, third fret middle 3 times. So thumb, open, thumb. Back to the D and C add 9. And then here with the G, we keep our finger on that third fret of the second string. Very last note, take that finger off, and you've got it. So that is all of verse 4. I'm going to go through the whole thing. Here is all of verse 4 right from the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, that's the end of verse 4, which means our next section is the bridge. So let's get into that. The bridge starts on a C chord. So we have thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, but this time take your index finger off. So all together, first measure of the bridge. Then we change to a G chord right away. Third fret on the last string. We do thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle. Back to the C for thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, and then 2 thumbs. It's the only time in the song this happens. Thumb, thumb, technically 3 because we use our thumb again for the G in the next measure. So here's that C measure again. And of course I went on to G, which was thumb, index, thumb, middle, like we've done before the whole way through. Now we get to a chord we haven't done yet in the song, the A chord that I mentioned earlier. A major is just the second fret on strings 2, 3, and 4. So I get it like this with my middle finger, index, and third. You can get it 1, 2, 3 if you'd like. I like this way better because it gives me more freedom to move around. So we start with the thumb on the 5th string, play the 3rd string with the index finger, thumb, followed by the 2nd string with the middle finger, thumb, 2nd string again, thumb, back to the index. But then it goes on to a second measure of A. Thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, and then the last middle finger is the 2nd string open, which then leads you into the C chord, which is next. So here's the whole A section. Then it goes to the C chord again. So we have thumb, middle, thumb, middle, thumb, middle, thumb, middle with the open string. Then the D chord, but this time the D stays through the whole measure. It doesn't go to C add 9. So here I play thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, and middle again. So you're just doing the same thing twice. And then you move on to the final verse. So before we get into that, here's the whole bridge all together. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, and now finally we can get to the very last verse. So verse 5, very similar to what we've done before. We have the 3rd fret on the last string, 2nd fret on the 3rd string. So we go back to that D note again. And we have thumb, middle, thumb, index, thumb, middle, thumb, middle. The next measure is all thumb middle, and then on the last middle, you take off that 3rd finger to get the 2nd string open. Switch to the C chord, thumb middle the whole way through with, again, the 2nd string open on the very last note. Back to G, thumb middle the whole way through. This time the 2nd string is open the whole way through. Then the D to C add 9, same as before. Then we get to the G chord after that, where we have that 3rd finger down on the 2nd string again, thumb, middle, thumb, index finally, thumb, index. And then it goes on to the D to C add 9 again, just as before. Then G going thumb, index, thumb, middle, but this time you need that 3rd fret again. And you might notice that sometimes I use fingers 2 and 3, sometimes 3 and 4. It's really up to you. I prefer 3 and 4 because that's how I first learned. But let's face it, 2 and 3 are probably your best bets. You'll want to go with that if this is brand new to you. Okay, last 2 measures. We have the D chord again, C add 9, and then for the very end, a G 6 chord. So it's the bottom part of a G chord and everything else is open. So 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the last string, 2nd finger on the 5th string, 2nd fret, everything else is open, and it ends the song with nice sounding G6 chord. Alright, so for more on finger picking, be sure to check out my other finger picking videos. I have one on the very basics. I have common finger picking patterns that you'll want to learn, as well as a few other songs, including Dust in the Wind by Kansas and Everybody Hurts by REM. Also, make sure you check out the book Guitar Chord Master. In this book, you'll learn all sorts of chords, all the basic chords that you'll want to know. So if any of those chords gave you some trouble, this is the book you're going to want to get, Guitar Chord Master. Also, in another book of ours, Beginner Guitar, we have a section on finger picking, and it goes over a lot of the things that's talked about in my other video. And then one more thing, if you go to themissingmethod.com and sign up for the newsletter, you'll get a free ebook. So go get to practicing, and I'll see you in the next video.